Today, everybody, in the coming webinar, Eric Stott from Innofor will explain and demonstrate requirement management of complex tenders that ensure efficient bidding and continuous project management through the life cycle of the project.
Okay, thank you, Joshua. Yes, Joshua already mentioned, this webinar is going to dive a little bit into the complexity that we see in the energy and utilities industry. What we typically see is the complexity of designing, constructing, and operating plants basically continues to accelerate. The same applies to the number of requirements they must measure up for customers' acceptance and handover. Plants are typically designed and built with multiple engineering, procurement, and construction parties, also known as EPCs. And these are distributed globally and involve distributed equipment manufacturers, partners, and suppliers. Contracted requirements for the design and construction of the plant change over the life cycle, and that needs to be managed. And this needs to be done in such a way that the final delivery of the physical plant meets the owner's final specification, but also the regulatory compliance just for handover. This presentation will cover some of the challenges that are typically dealt with in the energy and utilities industry, and what solutions we can offer to overcome these. But let's start with discussing some of the trends that we see. The first one is market volatility. Globally, commodity prices are sensitive due to fluctuation in demand, and supply balances are geopolitical conditions. And so in order to maintain these margins, it's important to improve the operational efficiencies. Another one is project cost overrun. 98% of all projects in the energy and utility industry are not efficient enough. And to increase this efficiency is key to introduce requirements-driven project management, preferably done in some kind of a digital repository. Another one, which is not explicitly mentioned here, but related, is the high transition cost, resulting in a very poor performance of capital projects. A big component of the handover cost is ensuring that the requirements are correct and accomplished. What we also see is that compliance and regulation requirements, and especially the complexity of these specifications, both locally and globally, is also an increasing challenge. Companies need to ensure that design, fabrication, construction, commissioning, and operation requirements are up to date and in sync with the work that's being performed. It's therefore key that a continuous verification process is in place. Last but not least, energy and utility large enterprises are digitalizing wherever it makes sense to increase overall agility and efficiency. At the same time, however, they need to make sure that you reduce the exposure to risk and protect your IP, your intellectual property. Therefore, a digital enterprise strategy offering a mature solution for process and specification management is key. So to summarize this, the major factors are basically improper specifications, ambiguous and non-verifiable requirements, and the efficiency to search through your documentation. So when looking at each of these four, market volatility, what does it imply? So what is the implication? When looking at market volatility, one of the implications is an increased risk due to inaccurate and incomplete bids. So the tendering process is a key aspect here. Therefore, this process needs to be improved by simplifying the process of capturing the customer's requirements and respond to them in an optimal and timely manner. Project cost overrun typically implies that a project is executed poorly. And this could be overcome by introducing a requirement-driven project management and decision process, where integrated documents have the assets to improve the execution. Compliance and regulation and its related complexity often results in an increased cost or burden of the traceability. This can be minimized by a truly digital traceability model, allowing constant verification and validation of the requirements against any test cases whatsoever. As last, the increased digitalization. This often results in operational efficiency and pressure on the margins. And it's therefore important to move to a digital and mature solution for process and specification management. So let's look at this from a system engineering approach. When we can mark basically 4 or 3 phases of a project and a base layer. The 3 phases are from concept to operations and finally verification and validation. So during these phases in the project, we need to make sure that we maintain enterprise collaboration, so communications at all levels to the rest of the organization. In order to improve operational efficiency for ensuring profit margins, we need to make sure that the requirements are linked to the life cycle with complete traceability from bid to completion. The impact of changes is assessed properly. There are links from the requirements to the task, schedule, and the resources, and there's a continuous validation and monitoring of the status. So let's zoom into the concept of operation. In the concept of operation phase of a project, it's important that we get faster response and more accurate bids to increase the project win rate for any tenders that come in. So especially in the tendering process, this is a key thing to improve. In order to achieve this, what we actually need is a specification or requirement document with enough level of detail, an accurate response to the customer's need, shorten the bid and proposal process, and a high level of operational concept. When we look at the requirements-driven project execution, we need to make sure that we get higher quality and more successful execution during project management. In order to achieve this, we need all requirements linked to the tasks that are scheduled. So a true closed loop between actually what's defined and what is implemented. We need a complete traceability to the requirements and the contracts. The ability to always monitor and manage the project status and execution at all times, and accurate status information with enough level of details. When we look at the last phase, to improve the quality of the deliverables, we need a system-based approach to verification and validation. And that contains a system approach to the process, analysis-based verification, test plans that are linked on a granular level to the requirements, a formal process of inspection and validation, and complete traceability between requirements, implementation, verification, or validation. As we've mentioned in the initial slide, at all these phases, we need enterprise collaboration. And that means that accurate and insightful information is available, enabling faster completions and reduce the risk that's involved. And in order to do this, what we need is real-time reports for appropriate stakeholders, project and operational insights, the ability to collaborate with multiple disciplines across the entire enterprise, and improve the productivity through digitalization. So what we're proposing is a digital requirement and verification management environment that could provide an integrated closed-loop solution for the entire process. This ensures that the planning, scheduling, and execution of tasks are done in the correct sequence and are driven by the requirements. It also links the verification and validation procedures and events to the requirements that drive them. It has real-time monitoring and accurate status reports available at all times in the project status and overall traceability. It also helps organizations to achieve certification and completion faster. And it makes sure that your teams can collaborate more effectively and therefore being able to respond faster with high quality to any internal or external requests. So let's have a more detailed look at the solution we're proposing to get these values. We will walk through each of the 3 project phases and show how requirement and verification management using our Polarion ALM solution could significantly make these phases more effectively. Starting with the concept of operations, where the process of participating in a tender by proposing a bid is a key aspect. So the bid and tender process is outlined in this flow, where the key aspect is to make sure that the bidding process is fast and accurate. So the steps involved are first capturing the tender into your digital environment, then allocate the right resources to the task, raise any exceptions, qualifications, and clarifications against these requirements. Then try to get consensus or reach consensus with the customer. Once you have that, create and execute a plan. And finally, create an execution plan, and then finally execute that plan as bid. So what we need in the concept of operations is the consolidation of tender coordination and management activity under one roof across a single traceable source, capturing all the relevant information. It should enable the reuse of requirements and experience from past tenders. So in this demo, what we see is that the tendering lead gathers the information coming from the invitation to tender documents and quickly imports them into Polarion to support the tendering response activities. With the import configurations, rules are automatically applied to define how work items can be extracted from the document. You can assign metadata to paragraphs before or after import. You can interact with the resulting live documents that look and feel familiar to a Word document. And once this information is imported, we can actually enhance it by adding properties to it, metadata, which could be standard, which could be your custom metadata. Once importing, we can filter on certain key attributes and disciplines to limit the live doc to only show what's relevant. And we can also create traceable linked relationships between the work items across different sections in the document or between projects. With live docs in Polarion, the tendering groups begin to simultaneously review any key contract paragraphs and raise any comments directly in the context of the document. So we can select a certain paragraph and then start to add what we call a command, or actually a more formal one, which is in this case a work item. So we add a paragraph below, and we basically create a new work item by simply typing it and then marking it as an EQC. When you create new work items, the workflows can automatically be initiated straight from the live document, complete with any attributes and relationships. It's easy to mark and unmarked text in live documents as different work items. And you can build workflows that manage any responses to contractual data. These reports in Polarion will show you any exceptions, qualifications, or clarifications against the incoming requirements. And we can use commands internally or externally to communicate. Once we assign a certain status in the workflow, we can then use a simple drag and drop mechanism to actually promote or move a work item forward in the workflow. So once we use the workflow management, we can actually simply move work items through the workflow. Exceptions, qualifications, and clarifications can be raised and nominated for customer review. The tendering manager uses the Polarion round-trip functionality to enable collaboration with customers to gather their responses from outside of the Polarion environment. During the export, he can actually pick what fields he would like to share and would like to keep read-only. He can then send this file, this Excel file, to the customer, who can then give their feedback simply by clicking on the fields in Excel. Once the changes are made, they're re-imported back into Polarion using the Excel round trip. And this enables a team to collaborate on shared assets easily and securely. Tendering stakeholders can access all necessary information related to the tendering activity. The reports in Polarion provide a high-level overview to the tendering contract progress. The tendering documents provide a clear visibility to as-bid contracts against as-awarded contracts and the discussion in between. It also offers full history, and this history is maintained through the progression of a work item. All actions, commands, and decisions made during the tender process are visible within the document view and per work item. And we can actually see here the differences. Linked requirements in a PLM environment can be leveraged downstream. In this example, we see the execution teams working from Team Center, and they see as standard requirements coming from Polarion to Team Center. They can work on them, make changes to them. And then a trail from Team Center back to Polarion can be used to investigate where the as awarded language differs and why. Built into Polarion, there's role controlled permissions to keep the information viewable or editable by the appropriate users. You can also recycle past specifications in your future tenders. The response team can quickly and easily compare incoming requirements against historical positioning. Out-of-the-box comparison reports across documents highlight changes in color-coded reports. So you can compare two documents and see the differences. We can even go one step further. If we see it on a document level, it might take a little bit work to find the right changes. But we can also limit that to a work item level. So see the differences at each work item level. Polarion contains a quick and flexible searching capability also, allowing us to search through these documents, finding the right work items, and even see the differences. This also supports things like wildcards, etc. So once we have a complete document and we compare them, we want to search through it, we can actually use some filtering as well. The work items themselves have also all the details of the description, the fields, etc. So within Polarion, we can also use what we call the query builder, using Lucene search mechanisms, searching on metadata, allowing us to search through all the different work items that are in a project. All EQCs from previous tenders are available for review and reuse while maintaining the traceability of the relationships. And this way we can actually trace back any changes that have been made, even from previous tenders that have been done. So as you see, a very powerful mechanism within Polarion to improve the tendering mechanism. So what we've seen in this demonstration is that we have a strong solution that could result in fast and accurate bid or tendering process. And it reduces the project planning effort by utilizing digital requirements, specifications, and procedures, enabling data reuse and faster time to construction. So let's have a look at the next phase, project management, where the requirement-driven project execution is a key aspect. Using an integrated requirement and activity management solution, you can get faster time to completion of your project. This process starts with entering or importing requirements. Both are possible. Then group them into so-called live documents and navigate through these documents. Trace the requirements to the tasks and execution activities. Then track any due dates and work breakdowns. Visualize the project progress, and finally manage the execution of any activities. So what we need in this phase, in the project management phase, is to minimize project risk by driving schedules to on-time execution through associated deliveries. You can browse the specification requirements and quick link them to where they are referenced in the specification document. All commands, approvals, and signatures are preserved in the document lifecycle. The document outlines shows actually a way to navigate quickly through very large and complex documents. The metadata that is shown inside of the document can also be configured per work item. So whenever you share these documents with the customer, you can actually limit to whatever is visible to the outside world. Built into Polarion, there's the history function that allows you to actually go back in time and compare certain versions of the document. And this helps to really understand what was changed. Also here, we can granularly move to a work item level and see the differences at work item level also. Rich reporting and dashboards are available for project management. This allows the automatic scheduling and burn down charts to show the due dates and work effort tracking for each of the data objects. So we can actually trace back what has happened over time for each of the tasks or each of the phases in your project. These schedules are then linked to workflows and deliverables. And we can use these reports to get an overview of the current status of the project. This way you can minimize your project risk by driving schedules to on-time execution. So what we've seen in this previous demo is that Polarion can offer an efficient requirement-driven project management and execution process. This concurrently performs construction and commissioning using digital quality reviews and dashboards reports to see the real work in progress. So the last phase is the verification management phase, where a system offering continuous verification and validation is required. Continuous verification and validation can be offered establishing traceability between the requirements and the verifying test cases. And this starts with reviewing the requirements, then define the requirements of validation activities in the form of test cases, align the verification procedures to the activity, conduct verification evaluation, identify any variances and conflicts, and finally qualify the requirements as verified. So what we actually need in the verification and validation phase is a solution that enables the reuse of requirements that have been proven through in a closed loop environment. Polarion contains interactive dashboards with notifications of assigned activities, as we've also seen in the previous demo. You can track verification activities against the task items with assignee, due dates, and work records. It also contains detailed verification information that is trace linked to the original project specification. These work records can be maintained within Polarion, and we can assign people to them and keep track of the changes. Link procedures and work instructions can be tied directly to the activity, and this will help to understand the procedure at hand. So what we've seen is that Polarion can offer a continuous verification and validation process. It enables safe and efficient operation of the commissioned assets through data-enabled risk reduction and compliance. So let's have a look at some customer successes. We've seen what Polarion can do, and in this slide we see how it helped some customers to basically overcome their challenges in the energy and utilities industry. Let's first start with Technip FMC. Their challenge was to reduce the price of non-conformance and their ability to track and manage any changes. By implementing requirement management, they were now able to quickly audit and track changes with impact analysis and improve their quality by standardizing any documents. Another one is Statoil. Their challenge was to find the link requirements and capture engineering standards, and they managed to improve the quality by standardizing documents through the implementation of a requirement and regulatory management system with Polarion. And the last one is Baker Hughes. Due to the increased complexity, they're struggling with capturing their requirement standards and their engineering standards. And they managed to improve the quality by standardizing their process using Teamcenter PLM in combination with Polarion. So I hope that with this presentation and these examples, I've given some ideas on how you can begin your digital transformation with requirements and verification management.